Welcome back, Ogden. It is January 26th, 2026, and we're ready to dive into the latest local news, this time with Tim Vandenack, who covers the Ogden area for KSL.
I'm a reporter with KSL.com. I live here in Ogden, and I write about immigration stuff, the Latino communities, Weber County stuff, and I previously worked for several years at the Standard Examiner.
Okay, so I want to start with the South Ogden shooting. A man and his son were shot in South Ogden by a neighbor. So can you maybe just walk me through like the verifiable facts of what happened there?
Don't know what initiated everything, but just the police received a report of shots fired, a couple people possibly shot, and then when police arrived, the first responders, they came under fire by the guy. So the initial shots were fired, and then the neighbors went out, what's going on, and they were shot. Don't know if there was anything going on between the neighbors or if the guy was looking out the window and saw them and shot them. We don't know why, except that they had gone out to investigate the shots fired. And then I guess once police arrived, the man's daughter was in the house with him. She ran out and allegedly he fired at her as well. She wasn't hurt. It was just the two neighbors and their dog, which shot and killed. Then I just guess they negotiated with the guy and eventually he gave up.
And they said something like he had internal anger or something. Did he make a statement about motive?
The court documents don't really, aside from that internal anger, they don't really spell much out. Other reporters pulled up documents of a prior court case, and I can't remember the date, but it was something separate where he allegedly confronted like a nephew and was just really aggressive and choking him. Or something along those lines, but aggressive sort of confrontation involving this guy. So now, the man died. He died. And so, there was a GoFundMe, there was an obituary, which gave some of the, bare bones information about him. Now it goes through the court system, typically further along in the process when if they plead guilty, like there's a plea agreement, there might be a few more details that come out.
Next, I want to move on to the threats that were made against the Jewish community. So recently, a man was charged with making a terrorist threat at an Ogden synagogue. And just a few weeks before that, another man was charged with making threats against the Jewish community, and they actually found explosives.
So the local police received a tip from the FBI, and apparently it sounds like it started with some posts the guy made on X, on Twitter. That's what kind of tipped him off. Anti-Semitic remarks, pro-Hitler sorts of remarks. I believe they were able to use their tech experts to somehow find out the origin of these tweets. So they went to this house in Ogden, and according to, again, reliant on these affidavits and these court documents, the police could kind of see what appeared to be a bomb being made. So I think they left, they got a search warrant, and then they came back, and whoever opened the door and let them in. And then they searched the house and found all these completed bombs being made, and guns and all sorts of things.
Wow.
Kind of, makes you wonder how, like, whoever else lived there in the home, weren't there any red flags about these apparent bombs in the home?
Yeah. He was a pretty young guy, right?
Yeah, I forget his age exactly, but pretty young guy.
And so you don't know much about his living situation either?
The court documents referenced his parents, so I think he was just living with his family in the house. He too had at least one other previous incident, was just kind of walking suspiciously and apparently fired a gun just randomly and didn't hurt anybody, but they called that in, and I think he was charged in that case. That happened before. And I think, if I remember, he may have been on probation related to that case. But
And so did he make any specific threats?
Yeah, targeting Jewish people. I don't know that he targeted any certain synagogue in particular, but just general threats against the Jewish community.
And he ultimately got quite a few charges, right?
Yeah, 15 charges related to each of the bombs. Each of the bombs that were being made. I think there was even a charge related to, kind of endangering the other people in the house just by having the bombs and things like that. So 6 counts possession of weapons of mass destruction, threat of terrorism, and 4 counts of possession of explosive devices. because of the materials he had there. And they also have victim targeting penalty enhancements, which I guess because of apparently targeting the Jewish community, I'm presuming that's what the victim targeting potentially come from.
So the threats enhance the weapons charges. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So then just a few weeks later, there was another threat at a local synagogue?
Yeah. The guy was homeless, according to the court papers. Sometimes you don't really know. Is it just, some unhinged guy just making random threats? Or I didn't get the impression that this was someone, with some serious bent against the Jewish community targeting it. But yeah, it was just...
Because he's like there at the synagogue making the threats. And he didn't have weapons, is that right?
They don't report any. He just threatened, supposedly said he had some, but...
So he's basically just arrested for making the threats. But they did also... Did they give him some sort of terrorism charge as well?
He was charged with making a terroristic threat targeting the synagogue. It's a first-degree felony. And then 3 other charges, I think he fought with police and he had marijuana, So
did the police determine that it was unrelated to the other one? Or?
I don't know what they go through to make that determination, but yeah, there was a cleaning guy at the synagogue cleaning person, and they just heard pounding on the door and went and answered. And it just seems like a separate incident. Police made no connection, at least in the documents, they didn't make any sort of connection between this and the other one.
Oh, I see. So it's not that they necessarily say it's unrelated, but they don't make a connection.
Yeah.
Next, I want to talk about, a few weeks ago, you reported a case where the timing was a big factor. The driver who renewed his car insurance just minutes after a crash.
Yeah.
What do police allege happened there?
We have a crime Bible that we go by. Certain crimes, write about this, don't bother with certain crimes. And this one jumped out just because the notion of trying to renew your insurance at a crash, and that seems like kind of obvious he wouldn't do that they would kind of catch on. So anyway, the guy was in an accident. Doesn't sound like it was a serious accident. Apparently, according to the charging papers, soon after the accident, he went online and renewed his insurance papers. Police looking into this, checked with the insurance company, and, they keep data on when it's renewed. They knew when the call came in, and they saw that the renewal was 10 minutes after the crash was called in. So that's where the charges stem from. That story got quite a bit of traffic. All these crime stories, for good or bad, they generally get the most traffic.
It did stand out to me too, is when I wanted to talk about.
Well, yeah, same.
Finally, I want to talk about the newly incorporated government up in Ogden Valley City. Most recent development is this lawsuit that was dismissed, but that sort of goes back even to the inception of the government, if I understand right. So could you give us the background of the lawsuit?
So the whole push for incorporation, I guess, in the first place, stemmed from people in the Ogden Valley kind of asserting local control. They weren't satisfied with, Weber County government, the county commissioners, particularly on development issues and things like that. And they vote for incorporation in 2024. It gets approved. Technically, Weber County commissioners still handle planning issues until actual incorporation goes into effect, which was earlier this month. So the county commission approved some of the details of proposal around Nordic Valley, a development proposal around the Nordic Valley ski resort. And that's what prompted this lawsuit. County shouldn't be, handling these planning questions and these permits. You should kind of just take a back seat and do nothing until incorporation. But technically, they still are the planning authority until incorporation. So ultimately, the judge kind of ruled, essentially that they do have authority until incorporation. And so the judge refused to issue a preliminary injunction, stopping the county government from taking these actions. And then with incorporation, by then it was a moot point and the case was just dismissed. So now the new city in Ogden Valley has their own planning commission.
But so now the new city government takes over the decisions and dismiss the lawsuit.
So I think the decisions made by the county commission, as I understand it, they will stand. There could be some legal challenges, but it's just new changes going forward. The new city council would be in charge.
And then you also talked to some of those new elected officials about they've been taking some other actions, kind of just starting up the government. Is
Yeah, they've kind of been meeting the citizens for, I'm thinking, a year, maybe more, since the incorporation vote, just to kind of be prepared. And after the election last November, when they had elected the new mayor and city council, one of the things they decided to do was these two taxes: a transient room tax, which is a 1% tax on hotel rooms, and short-term rentals, I think, falls under that as well. And then a 6% tax on energy, natural gas and electricity, to just get some revenue coming in. It's upset some people, because taxes, the question of whether taxes would be raised was always the big question mark and rallying point for foes of incorporation. Our taxes are going to go up. Based on the research, most cities implement these taxes, so it's not like they're an outlier, but just the idea of taxes, it seems like it has rubbed some people the wrong way.
I hadn't thought of that. So they never really had to pay city taxes. They just had the same county taxes as everybody?
The county has a special tax that it assesses on unincorporated areas.
I see.
I forget what the amount is exactly, but they were paying that tax, which, living in the city of Ogden or other cities, you don't pay that to the county. I forget what the amount was exactly, but they had been paying that. And I guess the question is whether that tax will be enough to help cover city expenses going forward, or whether they'll need to raise that property tax.
I see. And has the city made any plans regarding taking over some of that stuff the county was doing, like trash or any of that stuff?
Yeah, a lot of it they've contracted with the county, actually. So there had been some friction between the county and the city, but it seems to have smoothed over somewhat. And the sheriff's office will handle policing, like snow plow service. I think they're contracting with Weber County Public Works, which has been doing it, and so they'll have to pay them a little extra. The big thing that the new city wanted was to handle planning and zoning questions, and so they've created their own planning and zoning people kind of to address those issues. So
thank you again to Tim Vandenack, to KSL.com. Thank you to our Patreon sponsors, and have a great week.